Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing the review out here on my porch simply because I don't have enough green screen to actually capture the shot of this rifle. So this is the Armalite AR-50. It should be noted that this is the older model of the AR-50. They now make an A1 version that has a few differences. Number one, the bolt release is actually thumb pressable. This one here, you actually need to turn a bolt to pull the bolt out. Sounds funny, but it's true. Yeah, you have to turn the bolt, pull it out, and then thread it back in afterwards. So they have a little quick release now. It's a little bit more modern. A slightly different cheek piece back here and stock. And then also the trigger is different, but otherwise it's essentially the same rifle. So if you see A1 or AR-50, that's the differences between the two. Anyway, moving on. What we're going to do here is just kind of go piece by piece like we typically do and sort of illustrate some of the features of the rifle and then sort of my experience with it, right? So up front, you'll see this insane muzzle brake. So it's got a few things going on there. It's got the two side ports that are just gigantic. The two that are sort of pushing the gas backward towards the shooter. And then this piece here, which is sort of like a shield. The beauty of that is the gases here that push the rifle like this towards the shooter, that actually pulls the rifle off your shoulder while you're firing. So it really does minimize the recoil a good bit. And then this little shield here prevents you from actually getting blasted with that in the face. There's sort of a little cone that goes around you that gets a lot more blast than the actual shooter does. And that's both for pressure as well as sound. So that's certainly a good thing in just about every way. Moving on down to our barrel. It is an extremely heavy profile barrel. It's a 30-inch barrel. And you guys can see, I mean, the thing is just gigantic. If the rifle ever failed to work for whatever reason, you could certainly use it to beat someone. It's significant steel barrel, 1 in 15 twist, and very, very high quality barrel. This rifle, the AR-50s, are known for their accuracy. This one here lived up to that. We were just firing the Freedom munitions here, 647 grain ball load, and with zero problems, we're able to fire MOA groups, and of course the 50 does really well in the wind as well. So very accurate rifle. I know some of the competition out there in the 50 cal world is not quite as accurate, but this one gets it done, and that's in part due to the barrel and then also the way it's bedded. So basically, you guys see from this point here on the receiver forward is all completely free-floated, and then the octagonal barrel here has a V on the bottom of it that goes right into this stock. So it's V bedded in, a lot of contact points, very, very solid and repeatable lockup, and then obviously the free-floated barrel. So that's certainly a good thing too. Continuing to move rearward, we do have our bolt knob. This one here is very easy to grab, and the action on the rifle is quite smooth as well. One thing to sort of point out is that when you actually lock it down in place, it can be a little bit rough and you need some force with it. But other than that, running it is very smooth, but when you're locking it in place, you definitely need to get on it. It's definitely a man rifle in that regard. It's also a man rifle in the regard of overall weight, right? So the rifle, bone stock with nothing on it from the factory, comes in at 34.1 pounds, not ounces, 34.1 pounds. And then you add in your scope, the bipod, which I'll talk about here in just a second, and a lot of people are also putting monopods on the rear. This scope, I should say this rifle right here, comes in right at 38 pounds, so it is heavy. The bad thing about that, of course, is carrying it around, so probably not going to do a lot of field work with it. But the good thing is it minimizes the recoil and keeps it quite stable when you're firing and allows for better accuracy. To actually run the bolt here is pretty simple. I'll try to do it without knocking over my prop rifle rounds. But so you're just going to pull up standard bolt stuff. It unlocks, comes straight to the rear, and you can see just how smooth that is. I mean, there's almost nothing to it, which is awesome. So single shot, no magazine, that also adds in the smoothness of the action. So you just drop the round in there, and there's no like follower or anything like that on a magazine to get caught up on, which some other bolt guns, of course, are going to have. So definitely aids in the smoothness of the action. And then, of course, to get on it, like I said, you got to get on it. And while we're picking stuff up, I should sort of point out the 50 cal round versus the 5.56 round and just the significant difference of the two. So this round here, of course, the 50 cal is essentially a necked up, or a scaled up, I should say, not necked up, scaled up 30-06 round, designed by John Browning over 100 years ago. It was designed as an anti-material weapon and anti-material projectile. It does that very well, has been doing so for over 100 years, and there's definitely some precision loads out there. You know, the argument in the long-range shooting community is sort of moving towards 338 Lapua for a lot of reasons, and that's a separate video, but the 50 does real well at a lot of things, and with a good rifle like this one here, no issues with it at all. Before I forget about it, let's get into this bipod right here. This is the APA bipod. There's a few different ones available, and actually Armalite just released one for it, which is a little bit lighter and actually looks kind of cool. If I do more work with the rifle, I may pick one up down the road, but this thing is extremely solid and heavy. The bipod itself could be a weapon, so kind of show you how it works here. To move it, you actually have to move down these knurled threads. Correction, yeah, there you go. And then you can actually rotate it around, and then when you get it back in position, you can rotate it forward as well. Then spin it down to stay in place. So it's extremely, extremely solid, heavy duty as you'd expect, and really kind of as it needs to be. There's, I believe, 2 or 3 other ones on the market, but this one, from what I've seen around, seems to be about the most popular. Really nice because it allows you to level out your rifle very easily. Of course, when you're shooting at long range, if you get your reticle canted, it's going to throw your windage off bad. So you need to make sure you have the capability, regardless of the terrain you're on, to level that reticle out. And you guys saw the place where we were shooting out there at Rockcastle was not level ground at all and had 0 issues with it. Just get it level and go to work. I think we sufficiently covered the bipod, but the scope here is another issue. This is one I really probably wouldn't recommend for this rifle per se. This is a Millet 6 through 25 power scope. The 56mm objective, it comes with a sunshade as well, which actually we shot off the rifle, off the scope I should say, just the actual recoil of the rifle popped it off. So I'll put it back on now. It's threaded, it's just fine. The base here is a 15 MOA base, and that comes from the factory like that. Honestly, I think that's a mistake on Armalite's fault. We're talking about a 50 cal here, so it should be at least 20, maybe 30. And I know there are other options out there aftermarket, but you know, coming with it from the factory, I would think that would be kind of a better call. So for those who don't know, what I mean by that is the base of the actual mount for the scope has a 15 MOA cant in order to allow you to get sort of like extra elevation at distance to engage those targets, like I was talking about, 1,500, 2,000 yards, stuff like that. And with the capabilities of this rifle, I think you'd be a little bit better off with a little bit more there. But you know, from the factory, it's a solid mount. There's certainly nothing wrong with it, and didn't have any issues with it in terms of going out to at least 1,500 yards with this scope. Now, it's going to vary by the scope, so you also have to keep that in mind. But scope's okay. It comes in, I think, around $450 to $500. So the fact that it didn't break completely with the recoil of the 50 is good. Again, if it was my rifle, I would definitely throw something different on there, but so far so good. And we'll see, I suppose, long-term how it holds up. The stock back here, pretty cool little piece here. So we have our completely adjustable cheek piece, completely adjustable recoil pad, and the recoil pad has nice soft edge on there to help aid in that recoil. And really, in terms of recoil, we should just cover that now. It's not bad, guys. It's like if you ever fired a 10 gauge shotgun, kind of feels like that, or like a 3-inch Magnum buckload or something like that. So it's not, you know, it's a lot more than like an AR or something like that for sure, but it's not horrible. Like if you've ever fired a Barrett 82A1 or 107, those definitely have more recoil. But of course, they're much more lightweight. So it's not terrible. And of course, the weight and the brake and all that stuff go into it, including the stock. So it's adjustable, which is quite comfortable as well. No issues with that. You could definitely sit on this scope for a long time if you're doing like an Overwatch mission or something like that, and really not have any sort of neck issues in terms of, you know, soreness or anything like that. Very comfortable. We have our AR-A2 pattern grip here. Definitely, I'm not a huge fan of it. But it works, and it's something that most folks are familiar with. In terms of the rifle's features, the last thing we'll cover is the controls, which are very simple on a single shot bolt gun, as you would imagine. So again, to open the actions just like that, I'll verify that there is no round in there. We have all the rounds out of here now, and put that back in place. We do have a safety here on the back. The safety is a safety, however, it really is kind of like a firing pin block. This is the fire position all the way to the right. Pull it up, and it prevents the firing pin from going home. So essentially, again, it's a firing pin block, but works as a safety. So to fire, put down, and here on the AR-50, not the A1, the trigger is spec'd at 5 pounds from the factory. I pulled this one on my scale, and it's consistently pulling right about 5.5. So for a precision gun, that is a hindrance. You absolutely have to get used to it. It's a single stage trigger, which is nice, in my opinion. Some people prefer two stage. That's really a preference thing. And it's got a very clean brake, though. That's what enables it to still be accurate despite that weight. So the brake is breaks like glass, if you will, the standard expression. So it allows you to get good accuracy, which we certainly had with this rifle, but if it was a little bit lighter, you might be able to tighten it up a little bit more. Who knows? I'm not 100% sure on that, but either way, the accuracy of this rifle was exceptional for a 50 cal. I think we covered all the features of it, at least as much as we can in this review before I have to get it back to the owner, but there's definitely some downsides of it. So in terms of like fit and finish, if you're looking at like a 308 bolt gun or something like that, that's going to cost the same range as this, which I guess we should cover that. These guns tend to run about $3,000 to $3,500, depending on where you find them. So for a 50 cal, that's very cheap. So what are some of the downsides that you see with that? Well, it's got a phosphate finish, which is fine. Of course, that's worked just fine in military service for many, many years, but sort of like the fit and finish of it is not that great. You can see sort of things being slightly misaligned on the receiver and stuff like that. Things that don't matter at all in terms of performance. Again, rifle's been super accurate, but you know, again, on like high-end precision rifles, if you're looking at like a 6.5 Creedmoor one or something that's going to cost $3,000, it's just going to be a little bit nicer around the edges than this one certainly is. That's really the big downside, and along with the fact that it's a single-shot rifle. So if those things, along with the weight, I guess you could say, which is also an advantage. So if those things don't bother you and you want a 50 cal, then definitely I would take a look at it, especially if you want accuracy. So there's national 50 cal matches all around the country, and the AR-50 A1 in most cases, and even this one before it, always is a very competitive rifle in those competitions because, again, it's a very, very accurate rifle. So that's really the big thing of it. And of course, it's fun, right? So shooting a 50 cal, if you've never done so, is awesome. I definitely recommend doing it. It's a little bit expensive. The Freedom Munition stuff that we were shooting out there today, at least as of this video, I think, is coming in at like $299 a round or something like that, or $250 a round, which is about as cheap as you can find anywhere. I honestly don't know of any cheaper than that. So that's the cheapest. So it's pretty expensive. But, you know, it's not like an AR where you're going to go fire 4 or 5 mags or 150 rounds of 50 cal one day. So it's lots of fun, though. If you've never done it, it's an experience. I definitely recommend you double up on ear pro, and probably don't do it indoors. I don't know if there's any indoor 50 cal ranges anyway, but definitely not overhead either like we are here. Try to get out in the open because it's loud. That's about it, guys. If you guys have any questions about the rifle or anything like that, you can always post down below in the comment section. You can also post over at my Facebook page as always. But thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.